But
Well, no, you have a specific point, and your point is that sometimes the punishment is really bad, and is it worth it? And should everyone be encouraged to go down that path?
it depends, I suppose. I don't know.
Well, this is the point. It depends. However, if you come back to your point about the Soviet Union, there were many people in the Soviet Union who were poets, or who were authors or writers or artists of some kind, who did go to the gulags and who were killed. And they did it anyway, and many of them did it knowing that that's what would happen. And they felt that there is something in life that's more important than having a job. And we all feel that there's something in life that's more important than having a job. For example, I don't know that you would if your boss said to you, you know what, I need to have sex with your teenage daughter for you to keep this job, you'd probably say no, right? So we all have a line somewhere about what we are and aren't prepared to accept in order to have a job. We all draw a line somewhere. And where that line is for you personally really depends on what your moral values are and how strongly you feel about certain things, etc. For me, saying that the direction of travel that we are going in, and it's not just freedom of expression, there's also something that bothers me just as much, which is a kind of re-racialization of society.
Bothers me too.
It should bother everyone, in my opinion. When I saw that happening, particularly in the industry that I was working in, I felt that saying something about that was more important than being liked and supported by people in that industry. And in the industry that I was operating in at the time, I am now a complete pariah. I couldn't go back to the comedy circuit and work on the comedy circuit. It couldn't happen. Not that I need to, right? But I was prepared to take that risk and say that at the time because I felt it was important to me. There are other people for whom they have a different temperament. And, you know, it's an interesting question. People sometimes will ask you, like, I don't know if you've been asked this question, but do you wish everyone in society was like you? And for me, the answer to that isn't yes. It's no, I don't wish everyone was, but you do need some contrarian assholes like me who are going to be like, excuse me, sorry, what about, you know, the kid at the back of the class? You need some of them. Yeah. And in order for those people to be effective in what they do, they need to feel the backing of the rest of the class in raising the issue, right? So I don't think every single person needs to sacrifice, self-immolate in order to make a point. But what you can do is channel your energies or your money or your support or whatever in encouraging people who are challenging this stuff, if you don't want to be one of them.
Yeah.
And I think there's a middle ground to be found with all of these things. However, what I will say is this. If you feel very strongly that things are happening that are wrong, I don't think you're going to be able to keep that down. I've never met anyone who's talked to me about, you know what, I feel really strongly about this issue, but, you know, these are the consequences, I'm worried. I haven't met a single person who's been able to make peace with that, who's been able to make peace with the fact that they truly feel that something is happening in society that is wrong, and they're not doing anything about it. I've never met a single person who is comfortable with that dichotomy going on inside of them.
Well, they may not be comfortable with it, but there are plenty of people who object privately to what's going on and publicly march along.
And I think that's a very unhappy place to be, is what I'm saying.
It is. Yeah.
So what I would encourage those people to do is find a way to channel their sense of moral indignation or whatever it is that they feel into constructive action. It doesn't have to be their action. You can, as I say, support people. You know, you can become a member of the Free Speech Union in this country. You can give money to a podcast that you think is doing the right thing. You can support a writer on Substack. You can, whatever it might look like. You know, when it comes to politics, don't ever vote for people who don't share that view of that particular issue, or vote for people who share your view of it, etc. So I think there are many different ways, but do channel your feelings into action. Otherwise, you're stuck in this place of, I think, you know, when you're violating your own moral codes, when you see things happening that are wrong and you're doing nothing about it, I don't think that's a good place to be.
No, it's not. It's a massive pebble in your shoe.
Yeah.
So a few things come to mind. First of all, Free Speech Union. I totally forgot that Toby lived in London. Toby Young.
Toby Young, yeah.
He had the job I had at Quillette before I had it.
Yeah.
And I should have reached out to him, but I'm leaving tomorrow.
Oh,
so,
no.
Blimey.
Next time.
Next time.
Next time. Toby's a great guy. And he's done very important work with the Free Speech Union. We've had a few situations recently in particular where I've been able to call them up and go, look, this thing's going on. Can you, and there are a lot of people in positions who don't have even a big audience or anything like that, who've been able to get support and encouragement and help and legal advice, etc. So they're doing really important work, and I would really encourage people to support them for sure.
I also encourage people to support them. I'm not intimately familiar with their work, but I'm familiar enough with people who I respect that support it. So it seems like a good cause. Two other things come to mind, a little fun, and then we'll get into another spicy, serious question. One is, you said there's always going to be a contrarian asshole like me in the back who's going to raise his hand. I just think of in The Big Short, the movie with, who's the actor from the American version of The Office? Steve Carell. This guy's giving a presentation. He goes, excuse me, I have a question, please. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So that sprung to mind, and that's funny. And two, I don't know to whom I can attribute this. It's trotted out on social media often, but it's a good thing. It's a little sprinkle of kale juice in a world of McDonald's. It's, if you're in a room where you think everyone agrees with you, if you're in a room where you hold an opinion that is contrary to the consensus, if you raise your hand and you just say, hey guys, I'm not sure about this. I don't really fully agree with this. I guarantee there'll be someone else in the audience who also sticks up their hand, and you'll find that you're not as alone as you thought you were. There's this Abilene Paradox. Are you familiar with the Abilene Paradox?
I am actually. So I don't know if it's the thing. Somebody sent me something. I think it's the Abilene Paradox, whereby essentially in large institutions and companies. Is that what we're talking about?
I'm sure it's a corollary. That's not specifically what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, tell me about the Abilene Paradox then.
The Abilene Paradox, simply, there's a family in Abilene, Texas, where each individual member of the family is told that all the other members of the family want to go to a theme park. And they separate the 5 members of the family. They're all told each of the other 4 wants to go to the theme park. And then the family together gets in the car and goes to the theme park when none of the individuals actually want to go, but they just think that the others do.
Right. So this is, I think it may be exactly the same thing that we're talking about, but applied to institutions.
Sure.
Somebody sent it to me. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically the idea that in a large institution, quite often capture or a certain directionality occurs because most people don't want to say something, right? So if everyone thinks that everyone else thinks something and no one says anything to challenge that particular worldview, then everyone ends up moving in a direction simply thinking that the rest of the family or the corporation or the institution is intended on going in that direction, when the vast majority of the people involved were never asked and actually probably wouldn't want to move in that direction. And that, I think, explains a lot of where we are more broadly as a society.
I think that's called pluralistic ignorance. I remember reading that about something quite similar to that in The Bitter Angels of Our Nature, which is taken from Lincoln's second inaugural and then made into, Steven Pinker used as the title of the book. But he writes about pluralistic ignorance, wherein a society can, on a small or large scale, can end up collectively adopting beliefs that to which none of the individual members of that society adhere, which is quite similar to what you've just described.
Exactly. Yeah.